Surprisingly, over 90% of viewers haven't subscribed yet. If you're enjoying the content, hit that subscribe button. It motivates us to keep creating and helps us never miss an upload. I didn't realize a room could shrink without the walls moving. One minute I was laughing at a dumb joke during a game night, and the next I saw Mia slip her fingers through Adam's. My cousin. He looked at me like I'd wandered into a scene that didn't need an audience. She looked at the floor, then at me, then away again like my face was too bright to stare at directly. "Can we talk?" she asked, voice small, the kind of small that makes a person lean in. We stepped onto the porch. A shy wind stirred the string lights. She rehearsed a sentence I suspect she'd practiced while brushing her teeth. It wasn't planned. We started talking, and it felt, I don't know, destined. Like true love. 2 words, gentle as a frame and heavy as a safe. I'd spent years believing we were partners, groceries, TV shows, shared laundry days, the whole quiet, ordinary bundle that makes a life. Now I stood on a porch wondering why the world had decided to play musical chairs and hand them the only 2 seats. "So you're leaving," I said, calm because my voice had to be good at something. "I'm sorry," she whispered. When we went back inside, I said my goodbyes like a polite tourist and left. Rain started while I walked to the car. I didn't mind, rain doesn't pretend. That week, my apartment felt like a stage after closing night. Props still there, costumes hung up, nobody coming back for them. The mug she'd bought, the blanket that kept our feet warm during long films, every object had become a narrator. I set my phone under a pillow so I wouldn't check it every 5 minutes, then checked it anyway. My family didn't know yet. My mother invited me for Sunday dinner, cheerful in the way parents are when they don't sense the weather front. I went. My aunt and uncle brought a pie. My father fussed over the grill. My grandmother called everyone handsome. Adam showed up late, smiling like someone who didn't realize smiles could be measured against grief. We danced around the subject, a family of acrobats leaping over elephants. After the dishes, he met me on the steps. "It just happened," he said. "People happen," I replied. "You made choices." He tried for contrition, and maybe he meant it, but I was too tired to grade the effort. He said he didn't want to hurt me. I said he'd wanted to feel good. We ended with a nod, a weird little ceremony of cousins who had been teammates their whole lives and suddenly found themselves on opposing squads. I drove home listening to an old album we used to love, then turned it off because the melodies no longer matched my pulse. The first month after is always a list of firsts. First grocery trip without her yogurt. First movie night holding a remote that suddenly weighed as much as a kettlebell. First walk past the cafe where we'd spent entire Sundays pretending to read and actually people watching. I let the missing wash over, then ebb. I reminded myself that longing is not a compass, just a weather report. Then I built mornings with intention. I ran short loops in the park, lamppost to lamppost, breath steady, shoes whispering on the path. I cooked actual breakfasts. I cleaned shelves and tossed what belonged to nobody. I bought a plant and kept it alive, which felt like a small degree earned in patience. When I posted a photo of my living room, a friend commented, "Looks brighter." The room wasn't brighter. I was. By the 3rd month, I signed up for a night class in digital design. My day job in operations paid bills but never sparked that inner engine. Design did. Fonts, spacing, how a button invites a click. Tiny decisions that make people's days a little easier. The class met twice a week. I sat in front, asked every question I'd once swallowed, and stayed late when the instructor, Camilla, offered feedback. "You have an eye for clarity," she said, flipping through a mock-up I'd labored over. "You edit without fear." Nobody had ever said I did anything without fear. I walked home taller. I built a portfolio. Clumsy at first, then cleaner, then proud. I redesigned an internal dashboard at work on my own time. Our warehouse team stopped complaining about it. The new hires didn't even know there had been issues. It felt good to fix something that wasn't my heart. 6 months after the porch, I went to a volunteer event at a little cafe where creators helped local nonprofits. A volunteer coordinator paired me with a food pantry that needed posters. That's where I met Sam, who wrote copy that felt like a neighbor waving from their porch. We laughed about signs that make people more lost. We shared a muffin a stranger had donated. One weekend became 2, then 3. Conversation came easy, yet never rushed. I didn't tell the whole Mia and Adam saga. I wasn't hiding it. I just wanted this season to be built from fresh wood. When my landlord announced the building was going up for sale, I took it as a nudge. I found a small loft with tall windows and a balcony facing morning light. On the first day there, I drank coffee while the sky faded from slate to honey. A neighbor waved. I waved back and thought I might stay a while. At family events, I kept distance without drama. Let them sit where they wished. I made sure my grandmother laughed. I sat with cousins' kids on the floor and helped them build towers out of blocks meant for younger hands. It turns out towers don't care about age, just balance. Occasionally, Mia and Adam showed up together, perfectly composed, a catalog couple wearing good choices. Fine. Let them pose. I had no more lines for that scene. Camilla sent my portfolio to a tiny studio downtown. I thought nothing would come of it. Instead, Noor, the owner, invited me in. Big windows, plants that refused to die, clients who sold bread, taught classes, staged plays, work that touched real people's calendar days. Try 3 months with us, Noor said. I packed a lunch like a kid and showed up with a grin I couldn't hide. The studio taught me how to present without apologizing. I learned to trust silence during a pitch. I learned to say, let's try another direction, like it was a doorway instead of a defeat. Clients wrote thank yous. The team celebrated little wins with bakery pastries, big ones with late afternoon walks. Sam and I built a shared routine, Saturday stretches on the rug, riverside walks, dinner experiments that occasionally turned into takeout. Healing wasn't fireworks. It was warm lamps and good soup and work that left me peaceful tired. A year rolled by. Then I got a short message from Mia. Hope you're well. I answered with equal softness. I had nothing else to add and nothing to prove. Shortly after, I noticed they stopped arriving together at gatherings. People murmured about schedules. Families always act like change is a rumor until it plants a flag. The call came on a Tuesday, a regular afternoon thick with tasks. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. Hello? A breath. It's me. That voice I had once known better than my own. I wanted to apologize, she said. Things haven't been what we said they were. I told myself our chaos meant passion. Turns out it just meant chaos. We hurt each other in 100 tiny ways. I'm sorry for how I walked away from you, with that big phrase like it was a shield, true love. Maybe I was just afraid of quiet. I let her unspool. She needed someone to hear it, not fix it. When she asked to meet for coffee, I pictured that porch, the heavy honesty of rain, the year of building and rest. I thought about Sam's laugh, about rookie designers I now mentored, about my father's new habit of calling to describe the sky. I said I wished her well and didn't agree to meet. She went quiet, then thanked me for listening. The call ended without drama. My heartbeat didn't even change tempo. That night, I told Sam. We brewed tea, sat by the window, and watched streetlights brighten like careful applause. Proud of you, Sam said. Not because you said no, because you didn't need to say yes. A few weeks later, Adam texted. You around? Could use a talk. I was at the park, watching a kid learn to ride a skateboard. He fell, stood up, shifted his feet, tried again. I waited for him to glide 2 squares of pavement without wobbling, then wrote back, busy week, hope you're okay. I meant it. Compassion didn't require proximity. Another month passed. My grandmother's birthday brought the whole clan to a rented hall that smelled like frosting and old wood polish. She wore a little crown and told the same story 3 times. We laughed harder each round. Adam arrived alone, hugging relatives as if collecting spare strength. Out by the parking lot, he approached me. I made a mess of things, he said. I confused intensity for honesty. That happens, I said. You look different, he added, which is what people say when they finally notice you've grown roots. I feel different, I answered. We went back inside separately. I danced with my grandmother. I helped a toddler find a balloon that didn't pop. I cut cake. The hall lights softened, and for a brief second I caught my reflection in a window. Tired, happy, settled. Untouchable, not like a fortress, but like a shoreline that knows the tides and doesn't panic anymore. The studio got a small write-up on a local site for a project we'd built with a community college. Noor posted a photo. Camilla commented. Distant acquaintances sent hearts. Later that day, a message appeared in my inbox from the college's communications team. Would I do a short profile about career pivots? I said yes. They took my picture in front of a mural. The article celebrated process, practice, patience. When it went live, family shared it in the group chat. A little while later, Mia reacted with a simple, "Wow." I stared at that single syllable longer than it deserved, then typed, "Thanks," and closed the app. I stood, stretched, biked home under an evening sky that looked painted. Sam was already at the apartment, 2 mugs ready on the counter. A week after the profile, the studio intercom buzzed. Noor pressed the button. "For you," she said, half smiling, half curious. In the lobby, behind the glass, stood 2 figures I knew down to the way they shifted their weight when nervous. They weren't touching. They weren't speaking. They had the look of people who had finally realized the story they told themselves didn't match the life that answered back. "Do you have a minute?" Adam asked when the door opened. I did. I led them to a small meeting room with a window and a stubborn fern. We sat. The city moved around us, trains sighing, traffic rolling, a bakery truck beeping softly as it backed in somewhere down the block. They stared at me with a kind of wonder that bordered on disbelief, as if expecting the older version of me to appear and take my seat. And that's when I felt something I hadn't felt since before the porch. A stillness not built from anger, not even from triumph, but from alignment. "What do you need?" I asked, voice steady, hands open on the table. They traded glances. Mia swallowed. Adam cleared his throat. The first word took its time crossing the room. And that's where this part of the story pauses, right at the doorway of whatever they were about to say. "When you're ready, I'll tell you what came next." Adam and Mia sat across from me, but it felt like years stretched between the chairs. Their faces didn't match the version of themselves they had once sold to everyone else, the glossy couple who laughed a little too loudly, touched a little too often, as if rehearsing for a magazine cover. Now they looked frayed. The shine had dulled, the corners of their smiles wilted. Mia spoke first. "We thought we had it all figured out," she said, her voice careful. "I really believed what I told you back then, that it was true love. But I think I confused excitement with destiny. I thought leaving was brave. Turns out it was just reckless." Her words hung in the air like smoke. I didn't rush to swat them away. Adam leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. We hurt each other more than we ever expected. Constant fights, constant doubts. I kept thinking, this isn't how it's supposed to feel. And when things finally fell apart, he hesitated, then looked directly at me. I realized I had burned the only bridge that really mattered. It was strange hearing them admit the cracks I'd seen coming years ago. Strange, too, how their regret no longer had claws in me. Once upon a time, I might have begged for this exact moment, for them to see what they'd thrown away. But now, my life was full. My days were mine. Their confession sounded like a story from someone else's book. "What are you hoping for?" I asked. My tone wasn't cold, but it wasn't soft either, just steady. Mia's eyes shimmered, though she fought it back. Closure, maybe forgiveness, maybe just a chance to explain. Adam added quickly, "We're not asking for anything more. We just needed to say it." I thought about the porch years ago, about the rain I'd welcomed, because at least it was honest. I thought about the quiet mornings in my loft, the studio where my work had a purpose, the laughter with Sam on Saturday walks. That chapter of my life, the one they had rewritten without asking, was closed. They were the only ones still standing inside its pages. "I appreciate the apology," I said, "but closure isn't something you get from another person. It's something you build." I found mine in the life I've made since then. A good life, stronger than what we had, happier than I imagined at the time. They shifted uncomfortably, as if the truth itself pressed down on them. Mia looked down at her hands. Adam exhaled slowly, shoulders heavy. "You both chose each other back then," I continued. "You called it love, and maybe you believed it. That's fine. But I chose myself afterward, and honestly, that's the best decision I ever made." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was instructive. They saw me, really saw me, for the first time, not as the cousin or the ex, but as someone who had outgrown the cage they once shoved me into. Finally, Mia whispered, "You seem untouchable now." I smiled, Not with arrogance, but with calm assurance. Not untouchable, just aligned. That's all. I stood. They didn't. I thanked them for coming and wished them well. When I left the room, Noor caught my eye from her desk. "Everything good?" she asked. "Better than good," I said. And I meant it. Because when they came back begging for closure, they found something they didn't expect. Not revenge, not anger, not even bitterness. They found me whole, untethered, and already miles down a brighter road they could no longer follow. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. The days after their visit felt lighter, almost unreal, like stepping out of a storm into a sky so clear you forget clouds ever existed. I wasn't shaken. If anything, I was strangely grateful. Their words had closed a circle I hadn't realized was still open. Life carried on, but it felt different. The studio landed a project with a small publishing house, and I poured myself into designing covers and websites for debut authors who still believed in the magic of words. Seeing their faces light up when they held their book for the first time reminded me of something. People flourish when someone believes in them. I had spent too long trying to earn belief from those who never valued it. Now I gave it freely where it mattered. Sam noticed the shift. One night as we cooked dinner together, they said, "You've been smiling to yourself more lately. Not the polite smile, the real one. The one that starts in your eyes." I laughed. Maybe I finally figured out how to wear my own life comfortably. The truth was simple. When Adam and Mia had walked away, I thought they'd stolen something irreplaceable. But the more I built, the more I realized they hadn't taken anything at all. They had only left. Space, for growth, for peace, for people like Sam, for mornings with light flooding through windows I chose myself. Months later, I saw Adam at a family gathering. No Mia this time. He looked older, not in years, but in weight. He pulled me aside, hesitated, then said, "I meant it when I told you I was sorry. But seeing you now, it's different. You don't carry it anymore." I had to let it go, I told him. Otherwise, it would have carried me. He nodded, eyes glassy. There was no fight left in him, no arrogance. Just a man who realized too late that choices leave echoes. I didn't feel pity or triumph, only clarity. We were no longer rivals, not even in memory. He had his story, and I had mine, and mine was finally free of his shadow. Later that evening, my grandmother pulled me close and whispered, "You've changed. In a good way. Stronger. Calmer. I'm proud of you." It meant more than I could say. The real closure didn't come from their apologies. It came from moments like that, being seen for who I had become, not for what I had survived. In time, their names faded from my daily thoughts. They became like old characters in a book I no longer reread, important once, but not part of the chapters I lived now. Every so often, a cousin would mention Mia in passing, or someone would ask Adam about his work. I listened politely, then moved on. Their lives had no power over mine anymore. What mattered was the present, Sam and I building rituals, my work blossoming, my family laughing around crowded tables, the quiet joy of ordinary days well lived. The sweetest irony? They came back looking for closure, but what they really found was a mirror. They expected to see the broken version of me they had left behind, the one who might still crave validation. Instead, they found someone rebuilt, someone who no longer needed their approval or their explanations. And when they finally saw what I'd become, happier, stronger, untouchable in the way peace makes a person untouchable, they couldn't believe it. Because the greatest revenge was never my pain. It was my freedom. The story didn't end the night Mia left me on that porch. It didn't end when Adam apologized on the back steps or when they sat across from me in the studio conference room. It ends here, on my own terms, with a life I chose, a love that feels like home, and a self I no longer question. Some betrayals burn you down. Mine did. But from the ashes, I built something brighter than anything they could have offered. Life has a way of testing whether your growth is real or temporary. After that chapter with Adam and Mia closed, opportunities began appearing that once would have scared me. The studio offered me the chance to lead a project from start to finish, a community campaign meant to help small businesses recover after a tough year. A few years ago, I would have doubted myself, second-guessed every decision, worried about whether I was good enough. But now, I walked into each meeting with the quiet assurance that I'd earned my place. The campaign succeeded beyond what we imagined, and one of the shop owners sent me a handwritten note. "You didn't just design a flyer, you gave us hope." That one line meant more than any apology Adam or Mia could ever have offered. Not long after, I bumped into Mia in town. It wasn't planned. She was carrying groceries, I was grabbing coffee. She froze for a moment, as if unsure whether she was allowed to speak. Finally, she said, "You look happy," and I was, not pretending, not performing, just living. I smiled and said, "I am." That was all. She nodded, almost like she understood that there was no space left for her in my world, and we both walked away. It struck me then, revenge hadn't been about proving anything to them. It wasn't about looking stronger or richer or more successful. It was about arriving at a place where their absence meant nothing at all. Standing there with coffee in hand, watching the city move around me, I
realized the final truth. They had once called what they found true love. But what I built afterward, self-respect, peace, meaningful work, and a love that grew naturally, was the real thing all along. And for the first time, I didn't just feel untouchable. I felt free.